Welcome to Lantern Voices, a podcast by Lantern Publishing and Media.
Welcome to Lantern Voices. It is an honor to have you here with us today. I am Louisa, your host, and if this is your first time tuning into our podcast, let me introduce ourselves a little bit. We are connected to Lantern Publishing and Media, an independent vegan publisher focused on animal rights, social justice, and wellness books. We are a nonprofit book publisher based in Woodstock, New York, and here in the podcast, we usually invite activists and Lantern authors to chat with us about their books, about their work, about anything animal rights related. If you're looking for content about veganism, this is the right place to be. And for those of you listeners who have been with us here for a long time, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in again. Thank you for supporting our work here in the podcast. Today's guest is the incredible Victoria Moran. Victoria is the author of 14 books, one of them that we published here at Lantern called The Love Power Diet. It was published in 2009. And as she will hint in the end of the episode, there might be another one coming up in a couple of years. You know, publishing, one of the topics that we discuss here in our conversation, publishing is a very slow medium. So usually books take about 2 years to come out, but soon enough, her 14 books will become 15 books, and she's going to have 2 books published here with us at Lantern. Victoria is also the founder of Main Street Vegan Academy. It is a project directed to vegans who would like to coach people, who would like to help other people to become vegans, who would like to have more opportunities in the movement, and who would like to connect with like-minded folks. I edit all the links that she'll mention at the end of the episode here on the description, so feel free to explore. And Victoria also has, alongside Main Street Vegan Academy, a podcast of her own. So I would strongly recommend, if you're an avid podcast listener like myself, to, after you're done with this episode, go over to her podcast and check what she's been doing there. She is an amazing interviewer, and she was an amazing guest to have here. I hope you guys enjoy it. And as always, stay tuned until the very, very end to guarantee your 25% off coupon to our ebook store. Heads up, The Love Power Diet was published in 2009, so that was before we were publishing ebooks. So her book is not available as an ebook, but it is available as an audiobook. We had slowly started bringing some titles into audiobook format. It is available on audiobook. It is available on paperback. Yes, paperback, not hardcover. Out there on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org if you want to support the indies, which we strongly encourage you to do so. So you can definitely get those books, but unfortunately, because we don't control all the other third-party retailers, we're not able to give you discount coupons for those. But I'll give you the discount coupon, the general discount coupon to our store at the end of this episode, because we want to reward you for listening to this podcast and supporting us. And the coupon will be able to be used. You'll be able to use the coupon in our store in any book ever featured here in the podcast. So any of the episodes, any of the previous episode, this is the first book that we unfortunately don't have it as an ebook, but all of the other episodes ever released here in the podcast, here on Lantern Voices, has an ebook attached to it, and you can use the discount coupon in any of them. If you want to buy in bulk, and you can use the coupon to get the 25% off your entire purchase. All right. We really appreciate having you here. We really appreciate your support to Lantern Voices. And now let's welcome Victoria Moran. Hi, Victoria. Welcome to Lantern Voices.
Hey,
It's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time. And I've introduced you a little bit in the podcast introduction to our listeners, but you are an author. You published 11 books, right? Or is there more?
14, and actually 15 is coming. 15 with you guys.
Oh, that's awesome, because I'm going to ask about that in the very end. But so 14, we definitely need to update Lantern's website. You're a podcaster yourself, and
Mhm.
you're the founder of Main Street Vegan, right?
All of the above.
So many hats. And I wanted to start from the beginning, or at least the beginning of your journey here with us at Lantern. Your book with us is called The Love Powered Diet, at least the one that we have so far.
Yes.
The first edition is from 1992 that predates Lantern because we were founded in 2000. And the second edition that's still out there, right? That's the second or the third edition.
It's actually the third. I think the Love Powered Diet almost proves the theory of reincarnation. It certainly has been that way for that book. That was my second book. My first book was accidental. I had a fellowship for foreign study, and I could study anything I wanted to that had to do with my major, which was comparative religions, but I had to leave North America to do it. So I went to the UK to study vegans because at that time, we're talking 1980, the UK was, smaller landmass, of course, that hasn't changed, but way more vegans than over here because it had started there in the 1940s. So I had this wonderful experience in the UK. I went to England, Scotland, and Ireland and met some of the people who had been part of the Vegan Society in the 1940s. It was just amazing. But I didn't know that was going to be a book. And I just thought this is my paper that I'm writing for my fellowship, but it was serialized by the American Vegan Society. And one of the wonderful men that I had met in England doing the research, John Wynne Tyson, just volunteered and acted as a literary agent, got me a publisher, small British publisher, but they were distributed at that time by Harper and Row. So for a book about veganism, years before most people cared, it was great. So that was Compassion, the Ultimate Ethic. And then I thought, okay, write book. That's checked off the bucket list. But then I met my first literary agent, Patty Brightman, who really should be far more famous than she is because she became the literary agent to the vegans. So she was actually making her mark in the world. She'd been the editor when she was at Warner Books of Fit for Life, which was this phenomenal book in the 1980s. Sold millions and millions of copies. Because of that book, fruit and vegetable intake in the US were up 10% for 2 years. And then she left the editorial side of publishing, became an agent. She got two phenomenal authors, Richard Carlson with his Don't Sweat the Small Stuff franchise, and John Gray with his Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus franchise. And so she was then able to reach out to so many vegans. I was actually her first vegan author. And then she did books with John Robbins, with Ingrid Newkirk, Howard Lyman. Dr. Neil Barnard. I mean, she was just with everybody. So she retired early to become a full-time vegan philanthropist. But I did do the Love Powered Diet with her in its first iteration with New World Library, and like you said, that was 1992. And after about 4 years, I guess, it went out of print. Then it was picked up again by an imprint of Rodale called Daybreak. They changed the title, a title that today would be considered very politically incorrect. They changed it from The Love Powered Diet to Love Yourself Thin. We wouldn't call a book that these days, but that's what it was called. And then it also went into mass market paperback, those little paperbacks that, used to be able to buy at airports and newsstands and things like that. And it had another life, and then ultimately went out of print again, and I just thought, "Okay, it had a good run, that's the end of that." And then John Pierre, whom a lot of people know, wonderful, is a personal trainer. He kind of made his name by going to LA and being a personal trainer to Ellen DeGeneres and a lot of celebrities, not because he was into the celebrity thing, in fact, quite the opposite, but just so he could have his star in the world rise enough so that he could do what he really wants to do, which is have this wonderful animal sanctuary, which he has now in Colorado, and do wonderful pro bono work, which he's also always done as a personal trainer and health advisor. So he called me one day and he said, every client that works with me gets a copy of the Love Powered Diet. And if they can't find one used, I photocopy it for them. And I thought, oh, this will never do. This book needs another life. And then I contacted Martin Rowe, who was then the publisher at Lantern, and 2009, we got third edition of The Love Power Diet.
Amazing. Yeah, you mentioned the title, the Love Yourself Thin title. That sounds like a very 90s, early 2000s title.
Yeah. Well, and something that a lot of people don't know is that the publisher comes up with the title. I think with the publishing process, which certainly I would think that a lot of your listeners are interested in, once you sign that contract, it's your book, you own the copyright, but it's almost I've used the analogy sometimes of putting a child up for adoption. I mean, that book really belongs to the publisher, and they can call it whatever they want. Now, my most unfortunate title, oh, I hate to even say this title, even though the book itself is really, really good, but it's Fat, Broke, and Lonely No More. Ah, ah. Again, publisher's title. I remember the editor at Harper One called me and said, I came up with this great title. And everybody in the sales meeting said, but who could write it? And he said, Victoria Moran. And he called me and he said, and I was waiting for some beautiful, spiritual, uplifting title. And he said, Fat, Broke, and Lonely. And it was almost like I got punched in the stomach, although I had struggled with food and with obesity and, really enough weight to cause health problems, not just, wasn't looking like fashion models at the time. And, money. I'm a creative person and an artist. Lonely. I was widowed in my 30s, so I'd had experience with that. So I said yes, but I've regretted that title ever since. And that's the interesting thing about books. It's what's beautiful about books that they last. But what's difficult about books is if you want to change something, it's not like a blog post or something.
Yeah.
It's etched in granite or at least in print.
Exactly, exactly. And I think because we were talking before we started the podcast about my master's in publishing, and nowadays with self publishing, with Kindle, ebooks, and all that, sometimes it's easier for authors who want to go independent to get the reins of their work. But at the same time, if you go for more of a traditional route, it's still very common for publishers to pick things like the title because oftentimes they are betting in an author, especially if it's a debut author, which is not your case, but for many people who are starting out there. And that being said, I think there there's this whole idea of like, do not judge a book by the cover, but everybody does. So they will pick, usually it's like marketing and sales who have a heavier say on what the book cover looks like and what the title is based on what they believe that the demographic that will read that book will
Mhm, mhm.
be interested on. So
Yes.
I feel like nowadays a title like that, maybe now we're seeing some resurgence of like 90s values, but I don't think a title like that would catch. And the content is amazing, may be amazing. We don't know because all we have is
Well, that's it. That's I think it might be I mean, I'm certainly no expert on the stock market, but what little I know about futures trading, it's kind of the same thing in publishing. It's like the publisher has an idea of what people are gonna want, and the other thing a lot of people don't understand is in traditional publishing, that timeline is long. So you're accepting a book, you're signing on an author, and that's gonna be maybe 2 years before the book is out. And so, as we see now with things changing so quickly, where people's interest is can just flip. Now, it's not always that long. I mean, whenever somebody famous dies, all those biographies are out in a week because they've been sitting on them, waiting for that famous person to die. But generally speaking, with non-public with a nonfiction adult book, it's gonna take a while.
yeah. Yeah, even fiction, nonfiction, that's the main struggle with book publishing nowadays is that the world is moving too fast for the publishing schedule. But but we go on, we move on. You mentioned so many interesting things. now when you were talking about your journey into the Love Power Diet and then all of the other books that you published after that, I don't want to go too deep into it because I'm sure that that's a whole new podcast episode. But I was very curious about your experience in London in the 80s
Oh,
because at that time you mentioned that the vegan society there was founded in the 40s. So at that time that was only not even like a whole generation. It was like 40 years.
yeah.
Like, so I'm sure you met with some of the founders and you had the opportunity to learn what how that movement sparked there.
Yeah, it was the most incredible experience. I didn't know when I went what I would experience. So I didn't meet Donald and Dorothy Watson, the founders of the Vegan Society, but I met some people who had been part of that in the 1940s. And the first thing that I think about is this was World War II. And that affected everybody around the world. I mean, I heard from my parents and grandparents what an impact that had on their lives, and they were over here. There were no bombs dropping over here, and it still affected their lives with rationing and whatnot. But in London, people were sleeping in undergrounds. They were sending their children away to the country. I mean, it was really hands-on war, and yet these beautiful vegetarians were thinking about what they were eating and the idea that we're having all this dairy, probably more than most people because we're vegetarian, and yet where does that come from? And that was really the basis of what we know as modern veganism. Certainly, there were people throughout history who ate all plants, but to really have it codified and with a philosophy behind it was something that these folks came up with during probably the most difficult time of their personal lives and of life in the UK. So I met some amazing women, Eva Batt and Serena Coles, and one in particular was Kathleen Janaway. She was the general secretary of the Vegan Society at that time. Very proper, traditional English woman. And when I asked her about what it was like in the early, early days, she said, "We didn't know if our bones would disintegrate or if we'd perish in a fortnight. We did this out of pure, disinterested compassion." And I remember thinking, "Oh, I wanna be you when I grow up," because at that time, I was still slipping and sliding with my own veganism because as I write about in the Love Powered Diet, I have a binge eating background, that was very difficult, so I could be vegan sometimes I was vegan for 6 months and then I'd fall off the wagon. So when I was doing the research, I thought I was vegan, but I would fall off the wagon again before ultimately doing it for, now it's been 44 years, I guess. But it was difficult for me. And yet being in the presence of these people who had overcome far greater difficulties was so inspiring. Another really incredible part of my research was getting to meet Muriel the Lady Doubting. So, if you remember back to high school history class and learning about the Battle of Britain, the person who is credited with masterminding that was Chief Air Marshal Lord Doubting. And after the war, people who had lost their husbands and sons came to him and said, "We need help." And this was particularly true with those missing in action. It's like, what happened? What do we do with this terrible loss? And unlike what we would think of today as a politician, this deeply affected him because he felt he was the one who sent these young men to the unknown or to their graves. So he actually got into spiritualism as a way to try to help some of these family members, and that's how he met Muriel. So after, I believe it's 7 years, when someone was missing in action, then they're determined to be deceased, and after that, they started courting and ultimately married, and when Queen Elizabeth had her coronation, everyone at their level of peerage, because remember, he's a lord now and she's a lady, they were supposed to show up at the coronation wearing ermine robes. Well, they were very vegetarian. They were not vegan, but they were not about to wear fur. And they found faux ermine in, I always forget with the coronation, if it was 1952 or 1953, but it was a long time ago. And she showed me photo albums of everybody, marching in to Westminster Abbey, and they all looked just alike in these ermine robes. And she and her husband looked like everybody else, but theirs was faux. So that was really cool. And there was another wonderful woman, Margaret Lawson. She lived way up north in Scotland, outside of Inverness. So Inverness is near Loch Ness, where supposedly they have the monster. I don't know. I did the tour. I didn't see any monster. Also, close to Findhorn, which I believe is still there. It's a kind of spiritual community, very well known at the time, at least, for producing these incredible vegetables, monster-sized vegetables, which the people there said happened because they worked in cooperation with the angelic kingdom. So, who knows about that? It was just a cool place to visit. But Margaret Lawson had a guest house, and she told me her story. She said, "Thou shalt not kill" rang in my ears for a fortnight. And I didn't know what to do with it. I went to my Church of Scotland minister, and he just said, "Rest up, it'll go away." But she knew it was more than that. And when she finally made the connection that she was supposed to be vegan, the voice in her head stopped, and she opened her bed and breakfast, and I mean, it was just like one person after another doing amazing things, and they were doing these things so early in time. Another family that I met in Southern England, young family, couple of small kids, and they were very proud to show me the 2 trash bags they generated every year, and other than that, they were doing zero waste. I'd never heard of such a thing. I mean, I was making 2 trash bags a week back in Chicago. And so it was quite stunning. And that book too has had a really interesting history of Thorson's kept it in print for 6 or 7 years. And then the American Vegan Society took it over. They made it less academic. They took out my the subtitles and not subtitles, what do you call them? Oh, footnotes and all that kind of stuff that made it more like the paper for the fellowship. And they still sell it. So in a way, it's kind of funny for me as a writer to think, people are still reading this thing that I wrote back in college. It's almost like, somebody going back in your diaries from your early life. And yet, it really is an important document today in our movement because it's looking at veganism as a snapshot in time. And I'm very grateful that it's out there.
Would you like to be one of the first to know about Lantern books, author events, and more? Then sign up for our newsletter. We deliver it only once a month, so you don't have to worry about overflowing your inbox with emails. We curate our newsletter with the latest Lantern news, but we also try to add information about partner organizations. That way, you can get to know about a new sanctuary or other activist organization every month. Go to the link on the episode description to know more. And it's so interesting how spirituality is a big part, like this voice that actually clicks something in your brain for you to make a change. You talk a little bit about that in your book. Angela Crawford, who is also a Main Street Vegan alumni, talks
Mhm.
about it at the Vegan Transformation, her book, and she talked about here in the podcast when she was a guest. And I think for me, what changed when I first became vegetarian was a similar thing. It was when I was reading a children's book that it was not a vegan children's book. It was not a vegetarian. It was just a children's book. and they had some description of like a dragon hunting I think it was a rabbit or something. And it was in the perspective of the prey, not the perspective of the mighty dragon. So I was like, that's what clicked my brain.
Ooh.
Um, and I think while I was going through the change, like becoming a vegetarian, I was only 13, and I had like my parents would take me to endocrinologists and nutritionists ever since I was 5 years old because they were worried about my weight. And when I made the change, the first thing that I experienced was like a very heavy weight loss. And because I changed my diet. But then after that, it wasn't permanent because although I had felt like this compassion for the animals and I changed my habits, the the fulfillment wasn't there yet. So I often struggle. I was also a classical ballerina for a while as I was a child, and you know that is a environment that brings a lot of pressures, especially on girls' bodies. So as I became an adult and I realized that vegetarianism wasn't enough anymore, I wanted to be a vegan. One of the things I struggle and I still do these days is to change the my eating habits without falling back on binge eating or not eating at all. Because those few things that I used to do when I was younger. And
Yes.
every time there's like a stressful situation, my default is to go to either of those sides. But one other thing that touched me in while reading your book is when you mention about the love part and like loving yourself and filling yourself with love. And now that you told me all of these stories, all of those people seem to be looking in the search for love, in the search of fulfillment outside of just diet or even just the vegan movement. They're looking more holistically
Mm.
at everything. So I was wondering if love has been a fundamental force and for physical action in your life as well.
Yeah, and we're talking love with a capital L, and you can do what you like with that. To me, love, light, interchangeable. I'm fine with gods. Some people are not, but whatever works for you. I was speaking with a friend recently, lovely woman I absolutely adored, hadn't talked to in a long time, and she told me that she was taking I always get the letters and LGP1. It's Ozempic and Wegovy and whatever it is, and what a great gift this has been in her life, and that it's really, really helping her. She's free from the kinds of thinking about food that she used to do, and that it's really great. And she had read The Love Powered Diet, and, we talked about this, years ago, and she doesn't see the world the way I do, which is very valid. We're all completely, entitled to see it how we see it, and she was so cute. In one of her text messages, she said, "This is working for me. No higher power needed." And I wrote back and said, "Well, I am airy-fairy enough that I think the higher power brought you this medication." So there's so many ways to do life, and I think that they're all valid unless you get into something that's really harming others. Now, I think that when somebody maybe they're dealing with weight issues or something else and they decide they're gonna be a carnivore diet, that to me that's a misstep. That's going off the path because that's harming others that shouldn't be brought into this thing to be harmed at all. But in some of these other things, if people want to eat differently, see things differently, take a different path, cool, because I believe we're all programmed with possibility and that we come up with our own way to solve the challenges that we bring into this life with us, to do the service that we came here to do. So, whatever people need to do to make life work for them, as long as it's not harming somebody else, is perfectly fine with me. What I do try to share in the Love Powered Diet is that for me, something very special happened. It was a dovetailing of two really powerful life changes. The first was that I really surrendered to a 12-step program for overeaters. And I had been in a while, I'd been going to meetings and that, and I didn't like it, and I didn't like it that most people were doing this high protein thing, and they didn't understand that I wanted to be vegan, and I wasn't managing being vegan, going back and forth at that time, vegetarian to vegan, slipping and sliding. But I knew what felt right. I knew what I wanted to do. So after my daughter was born, I just knew so much that I wanted to raise her vegan. It just seemed like the only legitimate way to, number one, give this new human being the best shot at life physically and spiritually. And also, because I had chosen to reproduce, to give the world a person who had gotten a start in ahimsa, in nonviolence, and holding on to that love that kids have when they show up here until it's educated out of them. So that really motivated me to surrender in the 12-step program. And most people are familiar with that today, but generally speaking, it's this idea of taking a problem that's just been insurmountable, something that you've proven time and again you're not able to deal with yourself, and turning it over to the care of whatever higher power you can conceive of. And that can be anything, really. It doesn't have to be supernatural for me. It is more of that kind of spiritual big picture thing, but it could be something else. And then cleaning up your life and then carrying the message to others. So that was really important for me. And what happened literally at the same time, it was like this double whammy, was once I did that surrender, once it was like, okay, God, which is a word that works for me, I'm getting out of the food business. Whatever you take it, because 'cause I'd been struggling with food from the time I was a little kid. My dad was a diet doctor. I was put on all these diets. I was bad for business. I mean, it was a mess. And I just said, "Okay, yeah, whatever, it's over." And as soon as I did that, I knew that I was gonna be able to be vegan for keeps, because it wasn't God or somebody, like that was keeping me from being vegan. It was me. And so I went forward a day at a time, which is also very 12-steppian, the day at a time, but that's what I needed to do because it was difficult. I mean, I'd been binging my whole life, and a day at a time, it got easier and easier. And what I started to see was that I had this incredible gift, and other people who had the same kind of problem with food, they had maybe one half of it, but they didn't have the other half. So I saw the people in my 12-step program, and they were doing this beautiful spiritual stuff, that they were trying to deal with their food in the conventional way, which meant cutting back on portions and eating less and, kind of white knuckling sometimes. And then often they would fall off the wagon, and that wouldn't work. And then I saw vegans who were sometimes struggling with binge eating as I had, and they were just trying to do it all with the food. And the foods they were eating were great, but they just couldn't stop eating. And then sometimes, they would go off and not be vegan, which had been my history as well. So when I got those two things together, so it was this, what I would describe as divine love, that I believe lives within each of us, combined with that genuine love, respect, compassion for other beings. When those things collided, my whole life changed. And I've done some interesting things in life. I've had some great gifts in life. I mean, having my daughter was a wonderful gift. I've had opportunities to travel and see things and do things that I'm really grateful for. But probably the most pivotal thing that's ever happened to me in my life was that juxtaposition of the spiritual surrender and the acceptance of veganism. Certainly changed my life physically, but also spiritually. And it also gave me this amazing life that I have with the 14 books and, lots of exciting stuff going on Oprah a couple of times back when that was what you were supposed to do when you wrote these kinds of books, and other just grand adventures that never would have happened. And so the recipe for that is in the love-powered diet. It's not for everybody, but, maybe for some people. I hope so.
And maybe we can take a little bit from there and a little bit from everywhere, from other
That's
places,
it.
and
That's it.
bring something. Yeah. But I really do resonate. And I was thinking after I read the book and I was sitting in my couch thinking with myself, and I was trying to remember the moments that I felt more at ease with myself, what I was doing, what were the choices I was making in my life in general. And I remember I was when I was in college, I did the Disney College program at the Walt Disney World Resort, which
Ooh.
is a program that some people have many things to say about it, other people yeah, but one of the things that helped me was to realize that I didn't have to count calories when it was there, and that my body feels best when it's helping other people and moving and not like sitting on a chair. So that was one of the things I pinned in my brain. I was like, okay, I'm choosing a career that will put me sitting at a desk, but that doesn't mean I don't get to help people while I'm sitting on my desk. That is something that I need to do. And something else is, okay, I need to move. But my body was made to move. So
Mhm.
I know I need to, it's not like I need to exercise because that is something that people say you have to do. No, I want to. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a walk every morning. I'm going to go, if I can go for a walk because it's pouring outside and where I live, it really rains. Um, then I'm gonna go downstairs to the gym and listen to some music while I run a little bit, or do something that just keeps my body active because that's something that I wanna do, that I learned when I was in a good place. And then interestingly, during COVID, that happened again because I had just gotten my own place. I wasn't living with my parents anymore, and I was able to, cook because I had time because nobody was doing anything, everybody was home. And that's when I started, thinking about veganism for the first time, and that's when I was like, "No, I think, this is like choosing the foods that I have, and learning new recipes is also making me, happy, and this is something
Yeah.
okay."
Well,
So yeah, sorry, go on.
no, and it's exciting too, and some people think, you're gonna be giving up stuff and all that, and, I mean, I've been around it for over 50 years, and as I said, consistently, vegan since 1983, and you would think it's gotta be boring by now. I mean, come on, that's a long time, especially doing it the healthy way. It's like, I'm not out there and I understand that there is certainly a role for, vegan croissants and all that kinda stuff that people get excited about. I personally choose not to have those, but even doing it the way I do it, which is really healthy, it's still so interesting and fun, and I'm always coming up with different kinds of ways to do the food. And recently, I had Dr. Michael Greger on my podcast in January, and he was talking about this portfolio program, which was developed by Dr. David Jenkins at the University of Toronto, actually 20 years ago, but it's just getting, kind of popular now, and I think what's cool about it is that we know that cholesterol and that can be helped with the low-fat, whole food diet, and yet this portfolio thing is like an add-on, and people love add-ons. The idea of, you get more instead of we're taking stuff away, and so on top of what I was already doing, the whole food plant-based thing, I I added this portfolio stuff. So what it is, the first thing is plant sterols, and those things are found in, pumpkin seeds and flax seeds, but to really get enough of it to make a difference on your LDL cholesterol, you need to be, doing, like, more. So that is a supplement. And then a lot of foods with soluble fiber. So that's anything that's kinda sticky. So you got oatmeal, uh, okra, barley, black beans, lima beans. There's a whole list of these foods that are high in soluble fiber, plant protein, particularly soy, which of course I was doing already, and nuts. And I had really cut down on the nuts because I've never had high cholesterol, but I've never had that really low sub 150 vegan cholesterol since I was maybe, I don't know, 38 years old. I remember when I was 38, my cholesterol was 138, but it's always not been like down there since then. And so I thought, just give it a try. So I'm eating some more walnuts, which is all very, nice and rich and good and wonderful. And in 3 months, Louisa, I had my numbers tested again. My cholesterol was 127, and all of the bad stuff, the LDL, the triglycerides, everything, together was 75. Which is stunning, because 'cause I'm 76 years old, and there's heart disease in my family going back to the Stone Age, so this is just not supposed to happen, and it has, and I find this very exciting. So I did, write a blog post about it recently for, the Main Street Vegan blog, and I'm just trying to share this with people because 'cause I'm excited about it, and other people, maybe they're excited about a recipe or whatever it is. Cool, let the world know. And I think one of the things that's so important for those of us who just believe so deeply in veganism for ethical reasons and we want to get it out there in the world is we've got to give people something they want. There's something that's inherent in the 12-step programs from way back in the early AA days, which is if you have something that somebody else wants, they're gonna go to any length to get it. And so when you have enthusiasm without pushiness, and your life is working, and you're accomplishing things that other people might find of interest, I mean, shout it from the rooftops. No, you don't have to push it on people, but you can sure celebrate what's happening in your own life.
Lantern Publishing and Media is a book publisher devoted to animal rights. You can keep up with all the news about our latest books, get tips on veganism, inspirational quotes, and much more by following us on social media. We are at Lantern PM on Instagram and Blue Sky, at Lantern PM Official on TikTok, and Lantern Publishing and Media on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Consider giving us a follow if you are on any of the social media channels. It really helps us grow our community and reach more people, sharing your message with the world. All the links are on the episode description. That is beautiful. And yes, because we see so many I don't know, so many bad stories out there, and it's good to fight them with the good stuff. Um, Particularly me, what I've been struggling with veganism lately, because I've always share here in the podcast, because I always think that folks who are clicking here might be interested in the vegan lifestyle, they might be interested in veganism in general, and they might be like me, who are in the stage that you were before. Some days I slide back, and I'm like, no, okay, let's next day's gonna be better. But one of the struggles that I have is with nuts and walnuts and all types of nuts in general. I was never a big fan of nuts, and I've been seeing that most of the replacement foods that we have for, like, if I want to have a mac and cheese, then the vegan cheese is probably going to be made with nuts. If I want to have milk in the coffee, then it's probably be a nut based milk. So I've been struggling with that part a little bit, and I've been trying to get creative and see, okay, if I don't like the taste of this nut, maybe I will like the taste of this other one. Almond milk is something that I thought I would hate, and I ended up loving it. And just the different types of, like, maybe I don't need to eat a mac and cheese because I've never really liked that much. I need to go there and just get a cheese replacement. Maybe I just don't need that in my life. I can just eat something else. So I'm trying to make it as fun as possible. And I think
That's it.
I mentioned in a previous episode that I like scrapbooking a lot. I like doing junk journaling. So I had like a cookbook now that I'm just like sticking things, and whenever I learn something new, I try to make it super fun. So, like, my
Yes.
brain is excited about it.
Ah, that's so interesting because I have a book like that. There's a wonderful, vegan author, Nava Atlas. She's done just dozens of cookbooks, and then she's in her other life, she's got this literary ladies website, and she talks about women who were very instrumental in poetry, fiction, nonfiction, the 1800s and that. But anyway, about 30 years ago, she came out with this sort of cookbook journal. So it's blank, but divided into sections. I have been sticking recipes in there for all this time, and I'm thinking, I really need to let my daughter know that when I die, she's gotta at least have a look at that thing, maybe she'll decide to throw it out, but it really shows a kind of decades of evolution of kind of my various phases that I've gone through. It's like, "Oh, this was when mom was really into raw food, here's a lot of Ayurveda." And so, yeah, it's cool to save your own recipes. And something I've been doing lately with AI, it's just really fun. I try to put off buying groceries for a day or two because it's so easy to say, "Oop, need to shop again. I am out of everything." But I go on AI and say, "Okay, I think I'm out of everything, but here's what I have that's dry. Here's what I have that's frozen. Here's what I have that's fresh. Here's what I have that can't." And I did that this morning, and it was so much fun. So it spat out for me, um, an avocado and black bean mash that you can roll in a tortilla or just put on top of rice, something that it called dribs and drabs minestrone, which was just taking little bits of these things that I don't have much left and putting it in with lentil and making a soup. And, it's just fun. And the fact is, eating is one of those things that, some people love it, some people hate it, but we all have to do it. So why not make it fun? And make it also resonant of you. The most probably influential sentence anybody ever said to me was, "You have to find places to recognize yourself." And I find this really profound because in so much of life, we have to do things that we don't resonate with. So, for example, I don't resonate with technology, but these days, if I'm going to be out in the world, I'm just going to have to do it. I mean, my printer wouldn't work last night. And I was so incredibly thrilled when, after trying about four things, I got it to work. It's like, oh my God, I have become the IT department. And so we're in these areas that are not necessarily where we would particularly like to be. But if for some parts of every day we can be in a conversation with somebody who's totally on our wavelength, when we can be reading a book that we dearly, dearly love, when we can be in a space with colors, with images that just make us feel at home, and in the food, when we can be dealing with it in a way that we like, not just because some expert said this is gonna be good for you, like you were saying about the nuts. I mean, hopefully you can find some ways to incorporate nuts that are enjoyable, because evidently now everybody says they're really healthy. But to force yourself into anything it's not healthy, your body is like, "Ugh." The old natural hygienists used to say that the way that people determined what was food, what was edible, was that the stuff that was gonna be harmful usually didn't taste very good. And we haven't changed all that much.
That is so true. Yes. And I was wondering if this idea of sharing the good message and sharing with other people what your findings and helping people change their lives is behind what propelled you to start Main Street Vegan.
Ah, that's a really interesting story. So, I went to, PETA event in 2011, and I'd been around all this stuff for a very long time by 2011, so it wasn't new to me, and they were showing videos of terrible things that happened to animals. I just know that after that, going home in the subway, I just wanted to help more than I felt I was able to. I wanted to just write them a check for $100,000, but it would bounce. So I was kind of talking to my higher power. I do that. And I got this very clear message of, your next book needs to be called Main Street Vegan. 'Cause it needs to appeal to just the regular people out there. It needs to have 40 little chapters because people don't have a lot of time to spend. You wanna put a recipe at the end of each one because people like recipes. And I'm just kinda like, "Okay, I can do that." So I contacted my literary agent, whom I'm sure rolled her eyes because 'cause we'd been working on another book, but I said, "I wanna do this, I wanna do this." And so she got me a big publisher, a Tarcher Penguin, and when I talked to my editor for the first time, she said, "We're happy to have you, happy to have the book, but we hate Main Street." And it was like, "Okay." And we talked about this earlier, that the title choice belongs with the publisher. So I was trying to write it and have it not be Main Street Vegan, and I just wasn't coming up with a good title. And then I had a vegan miracle. And I do believe that we are coming into the age of the vegan miracle because it is high time that the animals get their due. It's really time for some serious animal liberation. So, my husband and I were walking up Broadway, and there was somebody so famous that you could recognize him from the back. And that was Michael Moore, the filmmaker. Now, he had liked an earlier book that I had written, and he'd written about that in Oprah's magazine, so I gave my card to this woman that was with him and said, just tell him thanks. And then I hear, "Victoria!" Well, it's Michael Moore following me up Broadway. And the long and short of it was, he said, "We need to talk. We need to talk about food. I'll be away for a month, and when I come back, I'll call you." And I'm thinking, "Yeah, of course you will." Academy Award winners call me so much, it's getting to be really annoying. But lo and behold, he did. And we started talking about food because, he was trying to eat better. He had given up red meat because he had a spiritual experience over a piece of bison. And so he was open to some things at that time. And in one of these calls, I mentioned that my book, I wanted to call it Main Street Vegan. Publisher hated it. He said, "They're wrong." He said, "Everybody wants to be Main Street. Let me talk to them." So we had this incredible three-way talk with this super famous person, my editor and me. He convinced her. She convinced the higher ups and thus Main Street Vegan. So I tell you this whole story because once my editor called back and told me, "Yeah, that's your title, Main Street Vegan," it was like all these little pop ups were coming. There needs to be a Main Street Vegan podcast. There needs to be a Main Street Vegan production company. There needs to be Main Street Vegan Academy training and certifying vegan lifestyle coaches and educators. It's like, okay, I'll do that. So this was 2011. The book came out in 2012, and all those other things happened and have been going strong for all this time. Main Street Vegan Academy, which we are now calling Main Street Vegan Coach Training Academy, because some people have said that Main Street Vegan Academy sounds like a place where you go to learn how to be vegan, but instead it is a place where vegans go who want to up their game. They want to be coaches, they want to be writers, they want to be speakers, they want to start businesses, be vegan entrepreneurs, or they want to get a job with a plant-based company or an animal rights organization. So that's what we prepare people for. We've been doing that since 2012. In the early days, we were in person in my apartment in New York City. Now we are live on Zoom. And sometimes people will say, "Oh, it's an online course." And I say, "No, no, 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 it's not an online course." Even though it's on Zoom, but it is live and it is real and it's boutique. We cap the number of people so that each person is real. They have a name, they're important. I even keep some of the curriculum. We've got the core curriculum for certification that doesn't change. But once I know who is in each class, I throw in some classes that are going to be specific for people in that cohort. It's very, very personalized. And then afterwards, for the people that want it, there's all kinds of support. We have a monthly elite support circle. Every other year, we have a special in-person event in New York City. We're having one of those this summer in August for graduates and also for people who want it, who sign up for our 39th cohort that starts this October. So it's amazing. I'm so proud of Main Street Vegan and just so grateful that the universe enabled it to come through me.
That's lovely. And I bet that throughout these years, I think how many you said 2011, 2012. Wow, it's been like 14 years. I bet you've experienced other people's stories of transformation as well.
Oh, it's amazing. What has really I don't know what I expected, but I don't think I expected this. But what has happened through this time of Main Street Vegan is so many people have come through our doors and through our Zoom doors and then gone out into the world doing extraordinary things. So one of our graduates, Naomi Green, has a program. She's cancer thriver, and she helps people with a whole food plant-based diet. She has retreats in Belize, and I'm hearing from people all the time whose lives were transformed by working with her. JL Fields was in our very first class, and she went on to write several cookbooks, to work for a lot of companies, the Soy Council and Air Fryer, I think it was, and all these people doing demonstrations and being a product spokesperson. A lot of companies have come out of Main Street Vegan. We had a vegan cowboy boot company. There's an ice cream company in Mexico City. We've got food trucks and cafes and bakeries and catering services. And then people working. People have gotten jobs at PETA, Mercy for Animals, the Barnard Clinic. And of course, the thing that I think, there are many programs out there to learn how to be a vegan educator these days. But the one thing that we can promise at Main Street Vegan Academy that nobody else has is me. And because I don't have any grandchildren, but I have my graduates. And so even if they're my own age, they're my grandchildren. And I am out there writing graduate school recommendations, book blurbs. A lot of our graduates, I mean, Angela Crawford, Dr. Angela Crawford, that you mentioned with her wonderful book, Vegan Transformation, is one of our graduates. So we've got books, we've got podcasts, and if people need help, networking help, contacts, a blurb for something, a recommendation, that's what I'm here for. So, yeah, it's really I just couldn't be more proud of Main Street Vegan Academy, Main Street Vegan Coach Training Academy, getting used to that. So if anybody's interested, just take a look, mainstreetvegan.com, and I'm here to answer your questions.
It is never too late or too early to start learning about animal rights. If you go to our website, you'll find a variety of books, ebooks, and even picture books for the little ones about animal rights and veganism. Go to lanternpm.org and check it out. Amazing. I'll definitely add it to the episode links on the description. So if anybody is interested, just go to the description. And I am here with you for almost an hour. I know that we're running out of time, but this conversation is just so good. So I'll take a little bit more of your time just to ask, what's next? Any new book coming up?
Woo! Well, what is next is a project with Lantern that I am doing in conjunction with Dr. Angela Crawford. Our working title is Charmed Life, Kind Life. So, a little bit of background on that. The best-selling book that I ever wrote was came out in 1999 from Harper One. It was called Creating a Charmed Life. So that book sold over 200,000 copies North America, sold foreign rights to 32 countries. It really did something in the world. And so I've kind of had a reputation. And before I got into doing vegan stuff really full time, I was like the charmed life lady. And I was going around the country speaking about, what it takes to create a charmed life. And this comes full circle. What we're going to be presenting is a curated collection of essays by our graduates. We've been doing the Main Street Vegan blog for 13 years and have nearly 700 posts. And so, what Angela and I are going to do is carefully read each one of those and compile them into an anthology that speaks to this idea of having a charmed life as a vegan. So, this is very interesting and very timely. There was an article in the Washington Post just recently where the writer was saying that vegans are losing people by leading with either the animal message or the health message, because what's really foremost is a cultural message that people may want to do this for animals or health or the environment or something else, but it's not what they grew up on. It's not what the people are doing that they know. And that's really the stumbling block. And so, what Angela and I want to do in this beautiful book coming from Lantern in spring of 2028 is is create through voices, different voices, not just me, not just Angela, but through many, many voices of committed vegans, how you make your life balanced and enjoyable and acceptable to all those around you, even if they think you might be a little bit nuts. It's the vegan lifestyle composed. So we're really excited and about to embark on what I think is the best time of life, certainly for me. I have had 15 incredible life periods. 14 have been in the preparation for the 14 books I have now, about to have another one. And then when I was pregnant. And they're very similar situations because it's this expectancy of something wonderful or someone wonderful who's going to change the world. So that's what's going on now. Mark your calendar, April 2028. Charmed life, vegan life,
Thank
or
you.
charmed life, kind life. We decided to leave vegan out of the main title because vegan is going to be in there because we're saying written by graduates of Main Street Vegan Coach Training Academy. But vegan scares people sometimes, as we all know. So charmed life, kind life, and we're still playing with the subtitle. Maybe it'll be vegan in there.
As we mentioned before, the publishing process is a slow one. So things change throughout the process, but it is writing a book sounds from what you said, kind of like having a kid. The books are your children too, and of course, very different proportions, but yes. Before I let you go, are there any projects, events, campaigns, or anything you would like our listeners to know about, maybe engage with in the upcoming months? This
Mm,
episode should come out probably in, I think, July or August. So if there's anything
okay.
up in the next few months that you like,
Yeah. Well, the main thing is Main Street Vegan Academy. So we've got a couple of things. The weekend of August 7 through 9 is the MSV New York City experience, which is in person and so cool. We're going to have Renee King Sonnen of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. We'll be at we're calling it Edu Party, a Friday night, Caravan of Dreams restaurant in the Lower East Side. We're also going to have a vegan comic. That's going to be so much fun. Saturday morning, we're having a walking tour of Greenwich Village. It's a human rights, animal rights walking tour with a licensed New York City tour guide who's a longtime vegan and animal activist, Andrew Kirshner. Among our speakers, we'll have Dr. Matthew Halteman, who wrote a beautiful book, Hungry, Beautiful Animals. I have not heard him present, but by reputation, he's supposed to be one of the best presenters in the movement today. Lots of other fun things. So if you do opt to take the Main Street Vegan course, which starts in October, you also have the option of signing up and enrolling in the New York City experience as well. But with or without coming to New York City, we will have the 39th cohort of Main Street Vegan Coach Training Academy starting in October, so you can read about that. Another thing that I'm involved with on an ongoing basis is something called the Compassion Consortium, and you can find out about that at compassionconsortium.org. This is a spiritual center for animal advocates. It's completely non-sectarian. You can believe anything you want to believe as long as you care about animals. And so we have Sunday service the third Sunday of every month in the afternoon. And we've also got vegan meditation. We have animal loss, grief support, all kinds of things going on there at Compassion Consortium. So check us out.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your time and your presence here with us. I loved our conversation.
Oh, bless you. It's been such a pleasure. Pleasure getting to know you today, too.
Thank you. And I think I might see you around in the authors group that we now have.
Oh, that authors group. I mean, we've had one meeting, so your listeners can know, of Lantern authors. And I just felt like I was in this lofty gathering of some of the best hearts and minds on this earth. I mean, it was so wonderful to be with people who really care about things that are important. And I love the idea, this kind of mastermind thing, where Lantern authors will come together in ways that are going to help all of us, have our personal work get out there more. And also all the collective, wonderful books of Lantern, past, present, and future. So very cool. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us throughout all these years. And I'll see you soon then. Bye. Thank you for joining us here with Victoria Moran at Lantern Voices today. Thank you for supporting our podcast and for being here with us for this episode and other episodes. If you are a new listener, I hope this episode encouraged you to check out some of the previous conversations we had here on our feed. And if you want to know more about the Main Street Vegan Academy, about Victoria's books, and about the work that she does, all of the links are here on the episode description, including the link to the event that's happening in person in New York. If you are in the area, or if you'd like to be in the area to join, go ahead and do so. And as we mentioned before in the beginning of the podcast, we unfortunately do not have Victoria's book as an ebook because it was published before. Ebooks were a thing for us here at Lantern. But if you want to use the special discount coupon to any of the books ever featured here in the podcast, all you have to do is go to lanternpm.org, head over to our ebook store. You'll see it on the top part. There is books, and then if you click, there will be a drop-down menu, ebook store. Click over there. On your left-hand side, there will be a menu saying feature in the podcast. I think it's one of the first items over there. Then click on feature in the podcast. All the books that you'll see there, all of them have the 25% off coupon discount applied. So select as many as you want, go to checkout, and then you type Lantern Voices 25, all together, no spaces. Lantern Voices, like the name of the podcast, and then the numbers, the digits, all right? 2 and 5 all together. That will give you 25% off your purchase. And if you'd like to support us even more, join us on Patreon. We're needing support over there. So if you can, either to just be one more in the crowd and follow us on Patreon as well, or if you are able to support us with as little as $5 a month any support will be welcomed and appreciated. We are a nonprofit book publisher, so everything that we get is directed to the publishing of our books, to all the costs of book publishing. And our books help spread the words for the animals out there. So if that's your thing, maybe consider us supporting on Patreon, because you're going to get some special perks depending on the tier that you select, or different perks. And you will be able to get maybe even early access to some of the stuff that we publish here. And if you want to talk more about our podcast, if you want to send your feedback, just leave some comments if you're on Spotify, or head over to our social media. We are on Instagram at LanternPM. We're also on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Blue Sky. I think that's pretty much it. And Patreon, of course. But if you go looking for Lantern PM on Instagram, send us a DM, talk to us about your opinions about the podcast, or leave a comment in one of our podcast posts. We would love to know what you're thinking about. And if you have any authors that maybe you've read that are published by us and you would like us to invite to the podcast, let us know. We are almost closing out our season 2 because we record way in advance. So at the time of the recording of this episode, we are almost with the full year, with the schedule for the full year done. But that doesn't mean that we cannot have a season 3 if you're all interested. We are very happy to see all of you tuning in. The platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the platforms, they give us the data whenever you're tuning in, how much of the episode you're listening to. And we're very excited to see more and more of you joining us here at Lantern Voices. So thank you very much for being here with us. And stay tuned for our next episode next month, because we're going to have not one, but 2 incredible guests. I wonder if you know who they are. If you head over to our ebook store, you might see their books there already on a discount. I don't know, maybe. All right, everyone. I'll see you next month. Goodbye.